Okay, Councillor Shiner.
So I have two motions, and then I'll speak to a few items, Mayor Tory. The one is to decrease the 2017 budget is my motion A. Can you start my time when they have the motion? So this is to defer the project on Yonge Street, reimagining Yonge Street from Shepherd to Finch, which is removing 2 lanes of parking on street, putting in a bike lane, narrowing it down to a 2-lane road in each direction instead of 3, and it only goes up to the Bishop TTC station. There's a second EA, which we have to do yet, to take it all the way up to Steeles. I've had concerns about the impact it has on the businesses, and in particular when you end it at the busiest bus depot in Canada and try and drop the riders into a high occupancy vehicle lane filled with buses, I think it'll be dangerous. So I'm looking to defer the design work itself until we finish that and come back with that next year. The second motion I have is in regards to the TRCA.
Thank you. Motions 6A and 6B moved by Councillor Shiner. The first being the deferral of the Yonge Street reimagining allocation in the capital budget for 2017 cash flow. Deferral of that. All those in favor? Opposed? Sorry. So it's carried. Then we have 5B, which is
Thank you, Councillor Wong Tam. Councillor Fillion.
I have a couple of questions. I'll start with the Chief Planner. It's related to Reimagine Yonge Street. Could you describe what you see as the value of this project?
Through the Chair, Reimagine Yonge Street is a environmental assessment and planning study that looks at the North York Centre streetscape design, recognizing that we want all of our centres across the city to be walkable, transit-oriented, and also to accommodate cyclists. So the objective of the study is to urbanize the centre while improving, as a result of the backlog on state of good repair, the design of the streetscape.
And would you recommend restoring the funding, the $4 million for design work if the project is approved by Council?
Through the Chair, if the project is approved by Council, absolutely. There's considerable work that's been undertaken over the past 2 years to create detailed designs to advance this vision.
So, but the $4 million that was taken out at Executive Committee, do you support putting that money back in so that the funding for the design work is available?
Through the Chair, yes, this has been identified as a priority in the North York Centre.
Question for the General Manager of Transportation. Could you describe the kind of the work that's already been done on this project?
Through the Chair, yes, we have completed 30% design through the EA process, and we have put $2 million into that environmental analysis that was approved in the 2016 budget.
And would you recommend, and you're bringing forward a report, I believe, hopefully to PWIC and the next council meeting?
Through the Chair, we are prepared to bring forward the EA report.
And would you recommend restoring the $4 million in funding for the design work so that it's available should Council approve this project?
Through the Chair, the $4 million is important to move us to the next stage of the design development, and it's a combination of city money and PTIF money, so the combination of those two resources make it an important move.
Thank you. Question of Mr. Rossini about the funding. Am I correct that of the $4 million, 2 is federal funds and 2 is city funds?
Yes, that's correct.
And if we do not restore the $4 million into the budget, what happens to the $2 million in federal funding?
The PTIF funding, unless we can find a substitute project, which I understand has challenges, would be lost.
So the money would just be gone. The $2 million in federal funding would in all likelihood just...
If we couldn't find another project.
Yes, and
If I could just add, the timing on this is important because the PTIF window is very small, so we need projects that are ready to go proceed, and this falls into that category. We've had trouble finding projects that are actually capable of meeting the deadlines in the PTIF funding.
So, Mr. Livy, would you recommend restoring the funding that was removed at the Executive Committee?
That's a decision for Council, but we have provided advice that this is a meritorious project, and Council has included in the PTIF request.
And staff put the money in the budget in the first place. Is that correct? The money's in there because staff put it in.
It's in the recommended budget that we presented to
Yes,
committee.
thank you.
Do you stand behind that recommendation?
Councillor Shiner?
Thank you.
To speak?
Yes. I have two motions. The first motion, if you can put it up on the screen. Well, I can put it up on the screen this way, but anyways, because I do want to use the overhead. The first motion is to amend the motion I had at Executive Committee, which was to defer the funding to 2018. My colleague, Councillor Fillion, has expressed a concern that the money would be lost. This then parks the money in a reserve account, both the city portion and the federal portion. Council decides to go forward with it, they can pull the money out. If not, we won't lose it and we can use it for another project. The second, and I have on that, sorry, that was this motion. This is my second motion. Sorry, this is the second motion that also asks for a report to come, a plan to install bike lanes on the ring roads around the North York Civic Centre, and I'll speak to both of these. And I came here to try and do it in the way of a map and talk about what's in front of us. So what is in front of us is a plan to narrow Yonge Street from Shepherd Avenue to north of Finch by the TTC bus depot. The hash marks at the bottom are the area from 401 up to Shepherd, one of the worst traffic jams you'll find anywhere in rush hour. Anyone that's driven it knows that. Finally, when you get up to Shepherd Avenue, because there's 3 lanes of traffic of roadway in the rush hour, you can actually get starting to move through that section. But the bike plan that this was part of, and I moved a motion there to have an environmental assessment on the extension to the north, actually starts and should start from York Mills up to that section, because if you want cyclists to go safely, you should have that comprehensive plan. Right now, we're simply looking to make the same disaster that's over here on the section as we go up. It'll remove the parking, it'll put a bike lane in, but the small merchants there, to my understanding, most of them, the notices were sent to the property owners. They weren't sent to the merchants that rent, and they're not aware of it. My award begins at Finch Avenue, but this current plan goes right up to the bus depot. It has the bicycle lanes ending at the busiest bus depot that we have in Canada, with GO buses, York Region buses, Viva buses, all coming out of there. And the bike lane stops there, and then if you're a cyclist, you're either going to go beside all the heavy buses, or the hope of the plan is that you'll actually divert over and go up a future bike path along Willowdale Avenue. So the other part of my motion says, let's look at doing the bike paths now, all the way from Shepherd Avenue, along the ring road system, up to Steeles Avenue, so it's safe, and look on the west side of the road to see if we can put them in there by doing painted lines. My real concern is the impact that this will have on that area. They're small businesses, they depend on the parking in front of them. Thinking that people are going to go down the side streets or find an underground spot in there isn't reasonable. Traffic is absolutely horrible, and the mayor himself was out there, saw the traffic, and said this has to get better. By putting the bike lanes in, I don't see it getting better. And the thought of the staff is that you'll take the people off Yonge Street, and you'll actually divert these cars to the ring roads, which are in place now, and they're not going to. They're not going there. The ring roads are in place. And if you do what you're currently doing, which is stop this bike lane proposal over here, all the cars going south in the morning from York Region on a 3-lane road are going to go up into all these residential areas and flow through all these, trying to avoid the mess that's here, because they'll never make it down to the ring road system. Now, my motion doesn't kill in any way. It actually, the amendment helps because it parks the money and it leaves it available for us if we decide to go forward with it. The project itself is $4 million to design just a small section. It was $41 million to build it. It's now escalated to $47 million to build a 2-kilometer section. If you do the whole, it could be even more. I think we should look at this in a holistic manner. But I want to give an opportunity to save those funds so they're not lost, which is why I'm moving the motions I have. And I believe it's a compromise motion and trying to work with my colleague, not dissimilar to what he was trying to do to park the money. The other comment I'll make in the short time that I have within the budget is many of you have asked about the problems and trying to fix the problems in the planning department. So this budget goes a long way to starting to do that. There's 35 new staff coming on with all the divisions and the planning division that deal with our planning process. It's my hope that they can work better to coordinate their work, get the reports back to you on time, work with the public better, and get things moving.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we do have a question for you, Councillor Thompson.
Thank you very much, Speaker. To Councillor Shiner, through you. Councillor Shiner, can you tell me, with respect to the consultation, you've identified in your remarks that the notification were sent to the owners of the property. So are you suggesting that there were no consultation that took place with the retailers, the operators of businesses along this strip?
This is a very ethnic strip except for the large stores. You have Chinese business owners, you have Korean business owners, you have Iranian business owners in particular there. It's very hard to reach them, and I don't believe the outreach has been good enough to actually find them and see what's going on, because the notices are sent, to my knowledge, to the property owner, not necessarily to the business person. And I'm really concerned that people aren't aware of that. There's also no BIA in that area, so there's nobody to work with. And the community in this area immediately that was generally sourced isn't the greater community that supports these stores. People come over from the others, from the east of Bayview, from west of Bathurst, over to the restaurants and the shops on Yonge Street, and these stores depend on them. So I want to be sure that they're properly consulted and the plan is in place.
So you're not attempting to not proceed with this. What you're looking to do is to allow for consultation, more discussion to take place? Is that what you're hoping to achieve?
I think we should do that. I think we should look at the rest of the plan, at least know where the report is, from the bus station up to Steeles. We should look at what's happening to the south. And in the interim, because there's no money in the current capital plan to build this, the only money that's in place is the money for the design. In the next 5-year capital plan, it's unfunded. I'm looking to say, let's look at it comprehensively before we do a design, which may not work, for a longer stretch of the road and spend $4 million on it. However, if it's the wish of council to do that, because the report will come to committee, council can decide to send that on to committee and do that, and by my amendment to my motion at executive, the money is parked and available for that. If council decides not to do that, the money is available for other purposes, in particular the federal infrastructure money that we may wish to spend it on. So council will have the end decision as to what happens when they see the plan come through the staff.
You talked about the bottleneck and the congestion that takes place. Do you know how many vehicles travel this particular area on a daily basis?
I think it is the busiest intersection here in all of Ontario at Yonge Street and Highway 401. It's really a difficult intersection. It is the busiest. And simply to come from the 401 and creep here, it's literally a 10-minute drive to get from here to here. And you can't get on the ring roads very well because of the traffic that's there, because I travel up them. And you can't get up Yonge Street. It's probably the busiest stretch anywhere, and much of it is from York Region, who's doing uncontrolled, in my opinion, development north of Steeles and depending on our road network for it.
That was your last question?
Okay. Last question.
Yes.
Thank you. So you're not attempting to kill cycling in this area?
No, I'd like to see the lanes go in on Bishop and Doris now and up on Willowdale.
Thank you. Councillor Fillion to speak.
Thank you. I'm going to move that City Council delete Executive Committee Recommendation 47 in order to reinstate $4 million in 2017 cash flows in the 2017-2026 Budget Committee recommended capital budget and plan for transportation services for the design work of the Reimagining Yonge Street Shepherd to Finch capital project, and that these funds be used for this purpose only if the project is approved by City Council. So I think most members of council are now kind of aware of this issue, but to recap, all I'm trying to do is to restore what was already in the budget that staff put there very enthusiastically, I might add. We heard earlier from the chief planner who said this project is kind of vital to the North York Centre and is exactly the kind of thing it needs. We heard from the general manager of transportation, all the consultation that's been done on this, all the design work that's already been done, it's 30% complete, the money that's already been spent on it. We heard from Mr. Rossini and Mr. Livy that there is $2 million in federal funding that would in all likelihood be lost if this project, if the $4 million is not restored in the budget. Councillor Shiner made two motions which did succeed in confusing many members of council. They have exactly the same effect as the motion did at executive committee, even worse perhaps, but at least the same, confuses the issue more. So just to recap that, obviously if you have $4 million that is now in the budget and you take it and split it and put two in a lockbox somewhere and tell the staff to go off and find somewhere else to spend the other two, you don't have $4 million anymore. So you have not set money aside. You've basically killed the possibility of doing any design work. The $2 million probably can't find another project because, as the staff will tell you, there is probably not another project that qualifies. So that $2 million of federal funding just evaporates. And how many times have we heard everybody in this room say, we need more money from the other levels of government, and we have $2 million in our hand, and Councillor Shiner's motion would have that $2 million dissolve. All my motion asks for is that we continue with what was supposed to happen under the normal course of events. The staff put some money in the budget for design work to be used if council approves the project. The project is to go to PWIC at its next meeting and then come on to council at its next meeting. So that's the time to decide whether you like the project or not. What Councillor Shiner's two motions, one through the executive committee as a last minute item and the other, the more, the two-pager, does is prevents that from happening. It puts the whole thing off for another year so that we don't get to consider it this year, and it causes the money for the design work to essentially evaporate, half of it at least to evaporate, and the project is then dead. Several members of council have said, well, where's the money going to come from for this work? And I could say from the same place as the work in everybody else's wards, but it is likely that there will be a chunk of money available from the Phase 2 Federal Infrastructure Fund, which is in 2018. So again, delaying it means that money is not available. There is federal money that is available specifically for this purpose that we can access in all likelihood if the project is not delayed. So I would urge you, please do not vote for any of Councillor Shiner's motions. Please vote for my motion so that we can discuss this properly at next month's council meeting and then make a decision on the merits. Thank you.
Thank you. We do have a question for you by Councillor Mammoliti. 3 minutes, a clarification of the motion.
So you're trying to restore $4 million that's to go to putting bike lanes on Yonge Street?
No, it's to go to design work if the project is approved, which includes a lot more than bike lanes on Yonge Street, you'll get a full report on that at the PWIC committee and at the next council meeting if the item is not in effect.
But Yonge
killed.
Street is included, so you're looking to put bike lanes on Yonge
It
Street.
includes bike lanes on an elevated sidewalk. Yes, that is
You're
part of it.
reducing the lanes on Yonge Street by putting the bike lanes in?
It would reduce the lanes on Yonge Street. Yes, it would.
So, Councillor Fillion, I remember the arguments you brought forward in the North York days when,
I'm not sure this is clarification of the motion.
yeah, it is, because,
Well, best have the speaker rule on that.
you argued that we needed ring
Madam
roads because of
Speaker, if you
traffic.
could rule on whether or not Councillor Mammoliti is asking me clarification
asking
of
a
the motion
question.
because
Yeah, clarification.
he's talking about the old days in North York.
Clarification of the motion,
Councillor
Councillor.
Fillion is always...
And I like talking about the old days in North York, but I don't think it's germane
Okay,
here.
Councillor, please.
So, I remember the discussions way back when Councillor Fillion wanted the ring roads around that area
Councillor Mammoliti.
because of traffic. So my question to him
Clarification of
is,
the motion.
if you wanted the ring roads, you got them because of the traffic, and now the traffic is horrible along Yonge Street, why would you want to reduce the lanes now after you argued that you needed the ring roads all those years?
The staff said we needed the ring roads, but it's a good thing we have the ring roads because that allows us to reduce the lanes on Yonge Street, which are rarely used for through traffic anyway, because we have so much capacity on Beecroft and Doris, which were designed to handle a lot of cars and can handle probably 3 or 4 times as much as they currently do.
The last question is, I'm not sure if you saw the latest on intersections, but Yonge and Shepherd is one of the worst intersections for traffic in the city. So by reducing the lanes just north of that, do you not believe it's just going to make it worse?
Well, if you
at
would
that
wait till
intersection?
next month, Councillor Mammoliti, you would see that the staff, for example, are recommending eliminating turning at Yonge and Shepherd, the same as we do at major intersections in the downtown area, which will greatly improve the flow between Yonge and Shepherd. But that's a good example of why you should wait till you get the full staff report, go to the PWIC meeting, hear the presentation, hear the discussion at next month's council meeting, and not vote to kill a project that you don't
Okay,
really know
that was
anything
your
I don't
last-
about.
need the PWIC meeting.
That was your last question, thank you. Councillor DeGiorgio, clarification of the motion, please.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So the thing I find astounding here is that in the context of infrastructure projects being approved and now we're getting money from the federal level of government, I mean, there are projects presumably that were ready to go, approved by council, ready to go, and instead we ask for money, if I understand this motion correctly, we ask for money on the premise that we'd like to have the federal government give us $2 million on the assumption that ultimately council will approve this proposal.
Well, if you can't ask questions of staff now, but if you want to talk to the staff online, they will explain to you the criteria for accessing this federal money, which is what you just described. It can't be something that's already approved in your budget. They're looking for something
No, what I
new.
meant was
So
council-
This is the perfect kind of project to access that funding, which otherwise we won't be able to access. You could not, for example, access this funding for some project that's already in your budget.
What I'm saying is that there are a list of projects that have been approved by council and they're not in our normal budgeting process, and yet we could have applied for those particular
Not
projects.
have, that's what I, and you speak
Okay,
to.
then I'm misunderstanding
Speak to
that.
the staff to get an explanation, but you could not have because the criteria is such that it has to be a new project.
Okay, thank you.
I have one other question, Madam Speaker.
Okay.
And on a point of clarification, the distinction between what I thought Councillor Shiner's motion attempted to do and what Councillor Fillion's motion attempts to do. My understanding was that Councillor Shiner's motion was to basically park the money, all $4 million, until this particular proposal went through PWIC committee and on to council for approval at council. And if in fact council approved it, the money would be available, since it's being parked, under Councillor Shiner's motion.
I'm glad I can enlighten you on that, Councillor
Yeah, please do.
Giorgio, because my motion does that. Councillor Shiner's motion does the opposite. So if you
Okay,
like
so
that
wait a minute.
concept, please vote for my motion. Do not vote for Councillor Shiner.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, point of privilege, Councillor Shiner.
Madam Speaker, in all of his talk, my colleague, and I thought my friend, Councillor Fillion, has completely misrepresented what my motion does. And in fact, my colleague, Councillor DeGiorgio, got it exactly as that's the way it was written by staff. And I don't like the fact that my colleague is misrepresenting or saying that what I have done is opposite to what I've done, because that's my character, and that's I spoke to it, and I did the motion and put it forward with the staff. And he should not be using his opportunity to disparage myself, my motions, or what they are really meant to do. And I take full offense to that.
Thank you. Councillor Fillion?
No more questions?
Okay, no more questions. Councillor Bailao?
The shelter positions being reinstated and support the budget motion. I'll be supporting Councillor Shiner's motion on Yonge Street. I'll be opposing the newsletter budget.
Motion 5A by Councillor Shiner, recorded vote.
The motion carries 24-20.
Motion 5B by Councillor Shiner, recorded vote.
The motion carries 28-16.
Motion 11A by Councillor Davis, revised. Motion 17 by Councillor, oh, that's redundant, yes.